we're going to discuss a bit about power and Dharma. How in a real human civilization, power is exerted according to Dharma, otherwise it's considered destructive. Let's look at the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita. I wonder how many of you really understand the depths of that chapter 1 of Bhagavad Gita. I found that often devotees think it's just, chapter 1 is just setting the scene. And let's get through it real quick to chapter 2 and beyond. But in chapter 1, you see an analysis of problems that are affecting the world today. Body consciousness and misuse of power. So in the first verse of chapter 1 of Bhagavad Gita, you see Dhritarashtra fully absorbed in body consciousness. Mamakam Pandavas Chaiva. What did my group, my own people do, and what did the other people do? Even though it's one dynasty, the Kuru dynasty, Dhritarashtra, for his own selfish purposes, is seeing a split. Just like today, we see the world fracturing into various body designations, body politics. So this you can see right in the beginning of Bhagavad Gita. And then what is Arjuna's response? He's talking constantly to Krishna about swajana. What does swajana mean? They're all my people. Arjuna sees everyone as friends, relatives, family members. And he's saying, how can I do my duty when there's a battle amongst swajana, my own people? So on the one hand, you have Dhritarashtra seeing a division in the Kuru dynasty. My side of the Kuru dynasty and the others. What are they going to do? Kimba Kurva to Sanjaya. Sanjaya, tell me, are they going to fight? Dhritarashtra wants them to fight. And then you have Arjuna, who's on a higher level with his material mistake. Arjuna saying, we're all related. These are on both sides of the battlefield. They're friends and relatives connected to me. How can I do my duty? Now this sounds very laudable, doesn't it? Yes, Arjuna sees both sides as being related, whereas Dhritarashtra just sees his sons as his people. But why is Arjuna wrong? He's being like a policeman who refuses to arrest a family member that's a criminal. He's like, in other words, suppose someone commits a crime, you call the police, and the police comes to your house and says, I'm sorry, we can't arrest the criminal because he's my cousin. That's totally unacceptable. You would say, do your duty. The criminal may be your friend, maybe your relative, but it's your duty as a police officer to do the necessary. So this is Arjuna's problem. On the surface, it looks like Arjuna is being very kind and compassionate. And yes, you can credit him for being soft-hearted. But Krishna is criticizing him on two levels. You're not doing your varnashrama duty of protecting the innocent. And what was the problem in Arjuna's personal case? We should never forget that. Otherwise, we'll think that Bhagavad Gita has as its setting the Battle of Kurukshetra, which is over some kind of resources, cobalt, lithium, or uranium, or a territorial war, trying to get more territory. No, that's not why Arjuna is on the battlefield. He and his brothers offered, just give us 5 villages. We're Kshatriyas. We're warrior administrators. We have to be in charge of something. And the other side had cheated them and wouldn't even give 5 villages. Krishna himself went to negotiate for peace. and Dhritarashtra and company ignored Krishna. So this is not, Bhagavad Gita is not a text that sponsors indiscriminate violence. But understand Arjuna's situation. He was influenced by Krishna's arrangement. He was influenced by body consciousness in a higher way than Dhritarashtra was influenced also by body consciousness. Try to understand, because this is very important for comprehending the world situation today. You've got many persons saying, what is my group going to do in opposition to that group? How are they going to fight? And then you have Arjuna who's saying, we're all related. I shouldn't have to do anything even though the other side is crooked. The other side even tried to kill Arjuna's family through poison, through arson, and still Arjuna's talking like this. Do you understand? He's talking like, I don't want to do it. I don't want to discipline them. I don't want to fight them. We're all related. So Krishna is criticizing both sides. Criticizing Dhritarashtra, you're making this split, your side of the family versus the other side of the family. And Krishna is criticizing Arjuna. You're neglecting your duty out of body attachment. Because Arjuna is thinking what? If I win, I'll be miserable because we'll have killed so many persons on the other side that are related to me. And if I lose, I'll be miserable. So all my options are bleak. So he's analyzing in terms of body consciousness. And this is why Krishna tells him, you're speaking big words of sociology, but actually you're talking like a fool. Because you're on the bodily platform. And that body consciousness is preventing Arjuna from doing his duty, his varnashramic duty. That's on one level, the material level. But Krishna is also criticizing him on the highest level, the spiritual level, because Krishna wants the battle. And he tells Arjuna, Nimittamatram bhava sarasatram. You can just be an instrument in this battle. Victory or defeat is not your concern. Now, why would Krishna want a battle? Because of the power dynamics. One side was misusing power. Krishna wanted them out. So yes, in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is playing politics. Now, how can you criticize Krishna for playing politics when Krishna is the source of all energies? And Krishna wants Arjuna to do his duty to fight the other side because that's Arjuna's occupation. He's meant to protect the innocent and stand up for Dharma. So it's not that Krishna is encouraging civilians to fight and civilians to be killed. This is what war has degenerated into today. What does war today mean? First, kill the women and children. Blow up hospitals. Cause as much suffering to the civilian population as possible, and then you'll be victorious. There used to be some mundane conception that you shouldn't do violence to civilians. That's all out the window now. The rationalization is that civilians are not innocent. They're working in armaments factories, they're doing support activities for their army. They voted for their leaders or they support their leaders, so therefore by attacking the civilians, especially women and children, you terrorize the population and they'll beg their leaders, surrender, please surrender, no more fighting. That's the way it works these days. I was reading the history of one man in Japan who happened to be in both nuclear explosions in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. What kind of karma is that? Horrible. It was August 6th when the nuclear bomb was dropped on Hiroshima. This man was not from Hiroshima, he's from Nagasaki, but he had been working for his company in Hiroshima and was due to go back home that day, August 6th. And that's the day the first nuclear bomb was exploded. So he's totally disfigured. Some other, he got on the train that took him back to his hometown in Nagasaki. And what happened? He went to the hospital. One of his friends was a surgeon in the hospital. His friend couldn't even recognize him because the man was disfigured from the nuclear blast. So then, somehow, 2 days later, the man happened to be able to make it back to work at company headquarters in Nagasaki. And he was telling his boss about what he had experienced in Hiroshima just three days or so before. And the boss was telling him, I don't believe you. There's no bomb that's powerful to destroy a whole city. I don't believe you. And boom! Right in the middle of the conversation, the atom bomb over Nagasaki exploded. Right in the middle of the boss saying, I don't believe this. So in this way, the death toll among civilians is no longer a controversy. Whereas the Battle of Kurukshetra is in a different league altogether. As Prabhupada always points out, the Battle of Kurukshetra was fought in an isolated place, far from the general population. And it was fought among civilians? No, it was fought amongst professional warriors. The civilians, they were far away. They would just pay taxes and acknowledge the government leaders as whoever won the fight. But the civilians were not harmed. So that's who Krishna is urging to fight. He's urging Arjuna to fight because of Dharma, and no civilians are involved. Completely distinct from any kind of war today, where you have territorial land grabs, you have resource fights. Bhagavad Gita is about power and Dharma and how to rise above the bodily conception of life, in which you think, I am this ethnicity, you are that ethnicity, therefore we should fight. And this is encouraged by Age of Kali politicians who know how to stir up anger. One famous historian said that politics is the systematic organization of anger. The more you do that, the more successful you are, the more powerful you are. In other words, your power is not connected to Dharma. Whereas in Bhagavad Gita, all the power is connected to Dharma or not. So Krishna in Bhagavad Gita wants his people in. He wants the Kauravas out. Now, is Krishna wrong for making politics? I leave that for you to decide. One side is corrupt. Krishna wants them out. Now, bear in mind, this is a very interesting point. The Kauravas were expert administrators. They were capable of taking care of the people and protecting them. They only had one problem. Who knows what the one problem of the Kauravas was? They were anti-Krishna. So Krishna wanted them out. But the Kauravas were capable administrators. Yeah, they did some crimes, but generally speaking, they were able to give protection. And that's very important according to the Vedic power dynamic. Just like you look in the 5th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, the description of Maharaj Gaya. He was the perfect example of a chief executive head of state. There are 4 attributes of Maharaj Gaya listed in the 5th canto. Number 1 is Poshana. That means the ability to give personal protection to the people, to protect their person and protect their property and give them enough food. That's called Poshana. What else did Maharaj Gaya do? Prinana. He would give gifts to the citizens. When's the last time you got a gift from the government? But he would do that, just liberally distribute charity. And then what else? Upalalana. He would speak sweet words to the citizens. And then finally, Anushasana. He would give instruction. He was fully realized in spiritual development. He was always jubilant, detached, perfect householder, followed all the principles of household life very rigidly. Yet, in spite of all those qualifications, he wasn't attached to being chief executive. It's good to know the standard so that you don't accept as real anything less than that standard. You may think, well, there's no one in this age of Kali like Maharaj Gaya. But at least you know what is the standard of real leadership. That's why Bhagavatam is presenting this information. So Krishna had a vested interest in the battle of Kurukshetra. It wasn't natural resources, it wasn't a land grab. It was upholding Dharma. And upholding Dharma didn't mean anything like esoteric doctrinal disagreements. Upholding Dharma meant that the Kauravas had done very horrible things, trying to kill Arjuna's family by poison, trying to burn down the house of the Pandavas with them inside, cheating in gambling matches, trying to disrobe Draupadi in public. Still, the Kauravas were expert administrators, but they were not exercising power in accordance with Dharma. They weren't doing that fully. They had some problems because they were greedy. So Krishna wanted them out, and Krishna wanted his people in. So you have to decide based on your understanding of Krishna. Can Krishna make politics or can he not? He's showing you what is Dharma and how power should correlate with Dharma. So just in the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita, you can learn so much. Because of identifying with the body, people are cheated and exploited. If you want to be a successful demon, here's how you do it. I'll give you demon lessons. This is political science, with the Bhagavad Gita ad. Oh, Bhagavad Gita has political science in it. Srila Prabhupada always made that point. Everything is there in Bhagavad Gita. Economics, political science, everything. Psychology. You just have to be able to see it. So, if people have no threat to their group, to their bodily designation, they can't be mobilized. First, you have to get them to strongly identify as a particular group. I am a this. And then you must find a threat to that group. You have problems because of this group. They're the ones who are causing all your anxieties. Then you mobilize because someone has given you group identity and pointed out someone is threatening your group. And then people get angry, and then they're ready for action, ready to be manipulated. That's the way it works. That anger is necessary for people to mobilize, for them to, But if you cannot get them to identify as a group, and you can't identify a threat to that group, people are just in anxiety. I don't know what's going on. Oh, I lost my job. My business has collapsed. I don't know why. I'm just in anxiety. It takes someone to change that anxiety into anger, and that's politics. You are in anxiety because of that group, which is threatening your group. And then suddenly you realize, I found the cause. Let me get angry. And then you can be mobilized and you can be manipulated. So this is power wielded not in accordance with Dharma, because Dharma begins with understanding you're not the body. That's the first lesson of Bhagavad Gita. So the whole world is plunged into this body consciousness and being manipulated. And this is why knowledge of Bhagavad Gita is so important. But if you think that Bhagavad Gita is war-based, you've missed the point. The war happened to be an occurrence out of the main problem of body consciousness. Verse number 1, chapter 1. Mamakam pandavas chaiva. What did my people do against the other people? Even Arjuna, 4 times at least in chapter 1, he says, Swajana, my people, my people. But his vision of his people is much bigger than the other sides, but it's still body consciousness. And Krishna didn't let him forget that. You're speaking big sociological words, but you're a fool. Someone who actually is intelligent doesn't talk like you do. So Krishna is giving instruction above the bodily conception of life. Justice doesn't depend on whether someone is your friend or relative. You're a Kshatriya, professional warrior. You have to stand up for Dharma, whether it involves, that standing up involves correcting a relative or a friend, doesn't matter. You're duty bound. That's on the varnashrama level. But Krishna's also speaking on a higher level. I want the battle. You're my part and parcel. Carry out my order. So that's Bhagavad Gita happening on 2 levels. So the real power is coming from Krishna. And in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is playing his part to demonstrate how power should be aligned with Dharma. So that doesn't mean anyone can say, this is a holy war. Participate. It's happening now in other parts of the world that I won't mention. If you participate in this war, you'll go to heaven. This is total misuse of Dharma. So if you understand why Krishna is telling Arjuna to fight, based on knowing who is Arjuna, what's his occupation, and based on your knowing the circumstances of the Battle of Kurukshetra, why it happened. Even Krishna himself went to beg for peace to the other side. Even Krishna showed them a universal form, and they still ignored it. Can you imagine? So then how can you say Krishna is sponsoring violence? No, Krishna is sponsoring Dharma. So if you want to help solve the world's problems today, begin by educating people how they are different from their body. Otherwise, people are just being exploited. They're being manipulated. You think you've done them a favor by building up their group identity. And you've forgotten you're this kind of body. And you should have common interests with bodies like yours. I think this is the peace formula. And now that you understand you're this kind of body and this kind of group, let me point out who's threatening you, who's the cause of all your problems. And then people get angry and they're ready for action. Manipulate us, tell us what to do. Those other people, okay, we get them. This is what's going on. Because as long as you don't do that, people are just in anxiety and they have no solution to their anxiety. I don't know what's going on. I don't know why the world is the way it is. I lost my job. I don't have enough money. I can't get health care. I don't know why is this happening? And then you come along and tell them, Here's the reason for your problem. It's that group. This was happening all over the world. No connection to Dharma. So in Bhagavad Gita, Dharma begins with understanding you're not the body. Krishna criticizes Arjuna. You're using the term swajana, our own people. But you're making division in such a way that Dharma is not being carried out. You're supposed to stand up for justice, no matter whether the perpetrator is a friend or relative. It doesn't matter. Stand up for justice. But you're being influenced by body consciousness in a much more elevated way than Dhritarashtra and company, who were very crude and criminal in their behavior. Although, as we said, they were taking care of the people. They were capable of administering. Their main problem was, who knows? I already said it. Anti-Krishna. So then you have to decide, does Krishna have a right to meddle in human affairs? That's another topic. Now what about the cowherd people of Vrindavan? Arjuna is not a Brijbasi. He's like a Dwarka devotee. Hastinapur is very close to Dwarka. So he's that kind of devotee. But in Braj, they seem to have catastrophes in which they're begging Krishna, please save us, please save us. It seems like the Brijbasis are only concerned with their own skin, right? Just like when the forest fire attacks, what happens? Krishna's on the bank of the Yamuna. He's just emerged from the Yamuna after dancing on the heads of Kaliya. So how does Krishna make it to the shore? The Acharyas point out that he's stepping on the heads of serpents, assistants of Kaliya. He's using them as stepping stones. And he emerges from the water like he's walking on water, but actually he's walking on the heads of serpents who are just under the surface of the water. And he's totally decked out with gold, precious fragrances, exquisite cloth. He's emerging from the Yamuna looking like that. When he gets to the shore, who are the first persons to greet him? It's the cowherd boys. Why? They had collapsed. They had fainted on the ground during the Kaliya Leela. They never saw Krishna dancing on the heads of Kaliya. They were just out of fear and alarm. They had collapsed on the ground. How were they revived? They all stood up at once because first they smelled the fragrance of Krishna, and that fragrance revived them, and they stood up. And then they saw Krishna coming across the surface of the Yamuna River, and they embraced Krishna, cheering. Where was Mother Yashoda? She was the last to come to greet Krishna as he emerged from the Yamuna. Why was she the last? Because she was the one most deep in unconsciousness, fearing Krishna's welfare. She had just collapsed on the bank of the Yamuna along with everyone else, but her collapse was much deeper than the others because of parental love, Vatsalya prema. So finally she came out of her unconscious state and greeted Krishna. She put him on her lap and she's crying hot and cold tears. Hot tears due to what she had seen, Krishna entering into the Yamuna River to fight with Kaliya, and cold tears of joy that he's back. So she's crying. I don't know if you've ever done that. Cried hot tears and cold tears simultaneously, but that's what she did. And where's Nanda Maharaj? He's usually very sober and grave, but he's trying to get through the throng of women to get to the bank of the Yamuna. So he finally catches up with the scene. And what about Balaram? Balaram picks up Krishna and puts him on his lap, smiling. because Balaram knows there was never any problem. And Balaram smilingly chastises Krishna. Krishna, you shouldn't have put everyone through all this like you did. We know you're invincible, but you didn't have to put them in such agony. But Balaram is smiling, saying that, while inspecting Krishna's body, see if there's any injuries. How could there be any injury to Krishna's body? But this is Leela. Then the cows. The cows approach Krishna, mooing, and they're crying, and they're licking Krishna's body and smelling his body. So thankful that Krishna is safe. So then, where did the cowherd people go? Nanda Maharaj decides. We're so exhausted from this ordeal we've been through. It's been physically draining. We're weak and tired. It's been emotionally draining, seeing Krishna caught in the grips of the Kaliya serpent. We just want to stay here and stare at Krishna's beautiful face. So they resolved they wouldn't go back to the village that night. They would just camp out right where they were, which suited the gopis' purposes very wonderfully. Because although all the Brijbasis stayed up late at night talking about Krishna's spectacular defeat of Kaliya and Krishna's beauty, sooner or later all the older Brijbasis went to sleep. And that allowed the gopis to just stare at Krishna's face without inhibition. So they stared and they stared and they stared. And then, especially among the gopis, Srimati Radharani locked eyes with Krishna, and they're exchanging glances. It's like their necks, Kavi Karnapur says. He's an associate of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He writes in Ananda Vrindavan Shampoo, it's like Radha and Krishna's necks were extending as their eyes locked with one another's eyes. And then what happened? Some gopis were awakened. There seems to be a disturbance coming along the bank of the Yamuna River. What's going on? Is there some disturbance caused by Kaliya? Has he sent some friend out of revenge? Or is it a friend of Kamsa? And then the threat is identified. It's a forest fire. So everyone wakes up. They're surrounded by flames. Now the question is, where did this forest fire come from? There are different analyses of the situation. Kavi Karnapur says the fire was created by Krishna to drive the Brijbasis closer to him. Others say the fire was caused by a friend of Kamsa, as we said, or a friend of Kaliya seeking revenge. In any case, whether the fire came from here or there, from this person or that person, the Brijbasis only know one thing: take shelter of Krishna. And their taking shelter of Krishna is based on the words of Gargarishi, who at Krishna's Namakarna ceremony, Krishna's birth ceremony, Gargarishi said, this child will carry Narayan. Narayan will enter within him and protect all of you. You see, the Brijbasis, as you know, never think Krishna's God. But when they remember the words of Gargarishi, yes, our little Krishna will be empowered by Narayan. Narayan will enter into him. Those are the words of Gargarishi. So therefore, we appealed to Krishna. They called out, Krishna, Krishna, Mahabhaga. Oh, Krishna, the source of all opulence. Rama, Ramita Vikrama. Oh, Ram, Balaram, you also do inconceivable things. You have inconceivable potencies. Please do something about this forest fire. Nanda Maharaj personally appealed to Krishna. Krishna, Vrindavan is your home. How can anything auspicious happen? How can anything inauspicious happen in your home? Please do something. Were the cowherd people appealing to Krishna just to save their own skin in body consciousness? They would have a right. If fire surrounded your house, you would have a right to call out to whoever could save you. Help, help, help. But that wasn't the Brijbasis' motivation. Their motivation was, Krishna, if we die, we'll be separated from your lotus feet. We won't be able to serve you. So you have to save us so we can go on serving you. Save our service. Completely different motivation. Save our service. We're so attached to your lotus feet in seva. If we die, if the forest fire incinerates us, how will we be connected to your lotus feet? And what were the gopis thinking? Oh, Krishna, just your toenails, the beauty of your toenails is worth more than millions of our lives. You look at your own toenails, what do you see? More beautiful and more valuable than millions of lives? But that is Krishna. So based on the appeals of the Brijbasis, save our service, Krishna swallowed the forest fire. Krishna's unlimited. So in just a tiny part of his unlimited mouth, the forest fire went. Now, how could Yashoda Mai and Nanda Maharaj allow their son to swallow a forest fire? You ever think about that? They don't think Krishna's God. They think he's their little boy who does inconceivable things. They would never allow Krishna to swallow a forest fire. And they didn't. They never saw it. Krishna did it in such a way that his parents wouldn't see, so that therefore they wouldn't be in anxiety. Suddenly the forest fire is gone. And what did the Brijbasis say? What happened? Was there a forest fire? It disappeared so quickly. Was it a forest fire at all? Kavi Khanapur gives the example that it's like an object in the dream suddenly disappears. It's like a magician's trick. The trick is happening and it's done. Or it's like an unfortunate person who has wealth and then suddenly loses it all. Where did it all go? So the Brijbasis are wondering, did we actually see a forest fire? Or did we imagine? Krishna swallowed it that quickly, quicker than their minds could perceive. So let us remember that the Brijbasis are nothing connected to body consciousness. They're totally free of body consciousness. They're simply thinking how to give Krishna pleasure. Body consciousness does have a perfect source. The perfect source of body consciousness is Goloka Vrindavan, where devotees think Krishna's my son, Krishna's my friend, Krishna's my brother, Krishna's my father, Krishna's my son. They think like that. That's body consciousness. But that's real body consciousness because everyone's body is spiritual. And for the sake of Krishna's pleasure, they're identifying as related to Krishna. So that's the origin of body consciousness. But what you have today is corruption. People consider, you're of this group, I'm of that group, you're a problem for my group. In this way, the world plunges deeper and deeper into its own destruction. So therefore, we're advocating, connect power to Dharma. Power must be there. Someone has to have the power, but if it's not correlated with Dharma, people will simply suffer. So this Hare Krishna movement has a great task to do. It presents the method for cleansing the heart. And what is the number one problem in the heart? Body consciousness. Where is the solution for that body consciousness? In fact, some scholars are suggesting that since body consciousness is so essential for human beings, you might as well just accept it and work with it. Can't fight it, go with it. That is not the teachings of Bhagavad Gita. Krishna begins, chapter 2, you're not the body. Based on that, there can be a real human civilization, there can be social sanity. Thank you very much.